Oh,
Hello, I'm Dan Naylor. Welcome to my fireside chat on distinguishing between freedom and liberty in early Western civilization. One would hope that we as PhD students at a university with the name of Liberty would know about liberty and freedom. And for both the Greeks and the Republican Romans, being free or at liberty meant that a person was not a member of their large enslaved populations. We will talk about slavery later. The Zimmerman article on page 175 implies that freedom is the mere license to do as one pleases, and that's pretty much everybody's go-to. The Walsh article agrees, mentioning that the free man does what he desires, but has rational self-direction. But when we talk to Aristotle in the Walsh article, man will still be a slave unless he uses reason to guide his own actions, desires that which is truly good on page 502, and has a share in the ruling office equal to that of one's fellow citizens. For the ancient Greek thinkers in Athens, freedom was eleutheria, the ability, or after trouncing the Persians at Plataea, the celebration of being able to participate in the polis, or the city-state. Participation in the city-state was not based on license, but upon self-mastery and virtue. And the self-mastery and virtue go back to Plato's allegory of the sun, to which a person chooses to turn deliberately, as in the very famous Plato's cave analogy in Plato's Republic, book 7, where the former prisoner sees the sun, escapes the cave, and allows, in education, justice, virtue, and leadership, and then the person has to go back to the cave and try to speak to people about it who've never actually seen the sun. Now, I found it delightful that ancient Greek philosophers, though pagan, would give virtue top billing when they were assessing and discussing freedom. Now, Roman liberty of the Republican era, as presented by Cicero in the Kennedy article, also speaks of license or licentia. But to my surprise, Cicero saw the democracy of Athens as licentia. The Roman Republic had some liberty under the law, in that citizens may, and I quote, elect commanders and officials, maybe canvass for votes, have bills proposed to them, but they have no share in the governing power or the deliberative function, or in the courts over which selected judges preside based upon birth and wealth. So unlike the Greeks, Cicero and Roman Republicans were comfortable with a permanent dichotomy between the patricians and the plebeians, the optimates and the populares, the landowning classes, and the non-owning, if you will, classes. And Republican liberty is a form of ordered liberty, considered a form of non-domination. It's not libertas but concordia, which is social harmony or visible harmony, but the classes remained stratified. So in my opinion, this is not what we mean today with the modern word freedom. Freedom implies that we can be whatever we want to be through seizing initiative, working towards a virtuous goal. Benjamin Franklin, Abraham Lincoln seized justice, virtue, and leadership mentioned by Plato, and they rose to great heights from humble beginnings. Now, the Roman concept of liberty would have allowed a Franklin or a Lincoln to breathe. The Greek concept of freedom allowed them, an entire nation such as the United States, to thrive. Freedom and liberty are distinct. I could conclude by quoting Dr. Roberts that there's the Germanic Northwest Europe tradition of creating councils, with the etymology arising from the term neighborliness and its implication of helping the neighbor as well as maintaining boundaries with one's neighbor. I'm tempted to talk about the Magna Carta as explained by Hanan in his book and video, as it was the beginning of parliaments and really the beginning of much of our government system today, because it was a victory over the aristocracy. Instead, I'm going to close with talking about slavery, putting liberty and freedom into a Christian worldview. Philippians 2 says, Jesus, being in the form of God, thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but took upon him the form of a servant. In Greek, the servant is diakonos. Philippians actually uses the term doulos, or a slave who is owned by his master. So accepting Jesus as Savior offers freedom, but in a form of a joyful slavery to our master.